back with Systemically Distorted Communication. I've got Spencer Fisken, the marketing genius, podcast host.
Putting it lightly.
Lightly, very lightly, of the Long Lost Explorer and business owner of Blue Ocean HQ. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. So, full disclosure, we did this yesterday, and I didn't push record. So we're going to redo.
We had a long hour and a half conversation.
Yeah, we'll see if we can match our enthusiasm today. So, as I said yesterday. Okay, so the point of today, we want to break down the upcoming George Floyd trial and kind of go over our perception of what's going to happen and some of the issues that could potentially come from it that, you know, are likely. So anyway, Spencer, yesterday they re-added the third-degree charge.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that's going to play? First, let's go over the different degrees, right? So first-degree murder in most states, I'll just go through this. First-degree murder is defined as unlawful killing that is both willful and premeditated, meaning that it's committed after planning or laying in wait. So basically, you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm going to go kill this person. Yeah. Second degree, which is what Derek Chauvin is being charged with, is the non-premeditated killing resulting in assault, which from some sort of assault where death comes. So you encounter a situation, you lose control, and because of your actions, because of your violent action, it leads to death.
Yeah, just kind of like what I used yesterday as an example. Like if you just like catch your girlfriend cheating and you just like blow up and you just beat the living crap out of the guy until he like dies.
Mm-hmm. And I think most cases go into this area where, you know, most of us lose our temper. That's what most of the reason that I kill people is when I just lose my temper. I mean, I
generally tread between second and third, so just depending on the day.
Usually you have second or third degree murder. You don't know what that's about. So then the third degree, we'll go back to second degree in a moment, but the third degree is someone can be accused of a third degree murder if they unintentionally cause someone's death while committing a dangerous act. So I guess dangerous and violent is a bit different. And the difference is really the mentality of the person, which then becomes kind of challenging on how you determine what they were thinking in that moment. And that's where it's difficult finding the evidence for that. So the two different charges on Derek Chauvin is the second degree murder and second degree manslaughter. And these are the difference between these is second degree murder refers to the intentional killing that was not planned beforehand. And then the manslaughter involves the unlawful killing, but without any evil intention to commit the act of killing.
Yeah, that's a really hard one to figure out, to get into someone's brain. Like, unless if you have Minority Report, like if we're living in that world of Minority Report and stuff like that, it's really hard to get into the brain of someone who you can prove that they have evil intentions.
Yeah, and even in that movie, you find out that they were technically not 100% correct all the time because ends up proving it wrong by not killing that guy. Although
that was just the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah, actually, I guess it did predict accurately, but the people running the system assumed that it was him killing. But wait a minute. Yeah, because the guy ended up grabbing his hand and forcing him to pull the trigger. So it ended up not being like they just kind of misinterpreted what they saw, but the reading.
Yeah.
Anyway, side trip. So the two that Derek Chauvin was charged with was the second degree murder and second degree manslaughter. And based on both of those, I wasn't sure that a conviction would come from either of those. So a few days ago, they added the third degree charge, which is unintentionally causing someone's death while committing a dangerous act, which they're saying the dangerous act is that knee on the neck.
You're saying they added or they switched from the second to third?
They added it onto the list of charges. So now they're open up to third degree murder. So
okay, gotcha.
Charge. So instead of just having the jury decide second degree murder and second degree manslaughter, they are now open to also having the option for third degree. So if they say there's not enough evidence for second degree, okay, maybe there is enough evidence for that third degree.
Yeah. I still feel like it's being pushed a little bit, just with the circumstances in hand, because Chauvin has a pretty good defense against, basically all the charges that he has at hand. Now, is there some negligence? Yeah, I could see like some negligence and stuff like that, but I don't know, when it comes to murder, that it's like one of those things. It seems like a lot of our politics lately are things that are just right on the fucking fence. You know what I'm saying? Like most of our arguments are not, black and white. It's just, not using it like racial terms, but just, black and white arguments and stuff like that. Not a lot of people are really fixing on that. So I'm noticing that the media have really been digging into those very, very on the fence gray issues and stuff like that, and becoming really political. So that's where it is. It's on the fence, and that's where the politics are coming in, to leaning on the other side to try and like, get the majority of kind of like the social approval to lean towards that side, which causes like the pressure of doing it. That's what I've been noticing lately on just like, every single topic when it comes to, in the past Trump, or just even some of these social issues when it comes to these gray area deaths by cops and stuff like that. So it's just been really kind of interesting to see what, especially even when it comes to a marketing standpoint, of how much they are trying to promote one side of this, and one side is definitely winning. I will say that the marketing campaign for one side is definitely outweighing against the other side. So obviously there's a lot of major points on both sides. You have, I feel like we're just kind of seeing his face. We kind of need to step back a little bit, because when we initially just see the clip of the knee on the neck, and that is just kind of where we start our facts from. And so this is kind of where things have been dug into, because that's where the gray area is. So you have a guy, a police officer, with his knee on the guy's neck, saying he can't breathe. I mean, you see this as a very harsh form of excessive force when it comes to it. So for that clip that we saw, it it looks like he is very guilty of doing this. But again, we only saw that certain clip. Now, as things come to light, and when it comes to the other videos and evidence that comes out, it's going against it's going against the narrative that the cop was, using excessive force and basically having him not breathe and stuff like that. I mean, even again, when a person is screaming that they cannot breathe, they can breathe. There's more questions to the story when you see that. But then when the first, when not the first clip, but I guess the second clip, when it goes before the knee on the neck, it brings to light that he had drugs in his mouth. You can see it, and I believe, maybe he was potentially hiding it. He was acting very erratic. He was very, very hyped up and scared. He was very high. And so all these issues were coming up, and then it leads to him going in the car and going out, and the knee on the neck. But see, this is where the um political kind of divide when it comes to the opinions start going at war with each other, because they want to hold on to that first clip. And it's the media that is like maybe kind of embarrassed because they were a little too invested into it. It's people that just are generally against police brutality, and they want to hold on to that narrative, even though it might be slightly just fucking up their argument with the second clip, which is before the knee went on. And there's a lot of things over at play and stuff like that. So one of the main issues is that I feel like most rational people, they will see the second video and they think, okay, maybe this police officer wasn't necessarily in the wrong that much, but it looks really bad. There was probably different things that could have been done. There's definitely like some negligence. There probably should have been a better standard operating procedure when it came to the medics and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But what did he have some racist or intent to murder this guy? It's starting to not really look like that. And
Mhm.
so this is kind of where this divisive thing is coming in, because people are really just standing their ground on both sides, but definitely when it comes to the left and or I wouldn't even say the left, but just like the anti-police movement and Black Lives Matter and kind of everything else. They're trying to grasp onto this because it's been a great marketing campaign for their cause.
Mhm.
With all the donations that are coming in for this issue, he is kind of this statue, this brand that has brought value to these groups and companies to push further their agenda.
Mhm. So with this, like you were saying, people get this clip, they've already created, made up their mind in their head. Um, do you think that in a situation like this where the entire nation knows a case, already kind of has their mind made up, digging their heels in for whatever their political ideology is it possible for him to get a fair trial by jury, do you think?
Yeah, and I kind of remember some of the things that we were talking about yesterday when it came to it and stuff. So some of the motivations for jurors, there's a lot of motivations when it comes to the jurors. So the lawyers are picking out, they're interviewing them, and they're trying to get a well balanced. Well, the prosecutors are trying to get the people who are going to vote to convict this guy, and the people who are
Sure.
defending Derek Chauvin, of course. So there's this kind of war that goes into, or this battle that goes in between them. But on the juror side of things, there's a lot of motivations. One, a lot of people are scared because they feel like if they vote to not convict Derek Chauvin, um, on convicting him, they're scared for their family and their well being, that they will be tracked down by these people and attacked or something, things like
Mhm.
that. Also, if anybody has been to jury duty, you don't get a lot of money. You really don't get anything out of it at all. And it's just a long, boring process where you have to kind of like work your ass off a little bit for no money. I think it's like maybe $100 and like you get one meal a day. And this is like one of the most high profile court cases. And so everybody is saying whatever to these attorneys on both sides to try and get out of the case.
Mhm.
And what the attorneys are doing are actually looking into the media and just their basic background history, because of course they're enticed to get the jurors that they want.
Yeah.
So they're excluding the ones, let's just say the defendants are trying to get rid of all Black Lives Matter people, and the defendants, and then the prosecutors are trying to get rid of all of, let's just say, Second Amendment, First Amendment, pro police, Blue Lives Matter like groups or something like that,
Mhm.
because they feel like statistically speaking, they may vote the other way. It shouldn't be like that, but that's how it's going on.
Yeah, well, that gets to the exact root of the problem. Like you're trying to exclude people based on their political ideologies because you already know everybody has an opinion on this case when
Hmm.
they hear it, and maybe some of the people will be very open, and we hope that's what happens in every
Yeah.
situation. But when you have jurors, like you were saying, that they have nothing invested in this, they're coming to do this thing, and you've got people on a certain side that will are willing to dox, attack, harass people. And the fear going into a case like this, to where it doesn't matter what the evidence says, for a fact that if you say this man is innocent based on the evidence, there's going to be an uprising. Things are going to get crazy. And it's very likely that you're going to get doxxed. People are going to come after you, and you're going to get accused of XYZ. Maybe if you're a white juror and you think he's honestly innocent based on the evidence, maybe now you're a racist. Maybe you're an alt-right Nazi, and then you get attacked for all kinds of reasons. So this is like juror intimidation, I think, or like jury intimidation. And I think I just don't understand how you can guarantee a fair trial at all in this situation.
I mean, and another point that I brought up yesterday is back in the 1980s, during the Pablo Escobar. Hello, dum dum. So back in the 1980s era, where Pablo Escobar was, basically on the rise, or was just like at his peak, there were jurors and there were judges who literally wore these rags over their head to conceal their identities, to do fair trials and not be pointed out by the cartel, because them and their family would be killed. It's really sad that we are kind of getting to a point of that's like where it's happening. And maybe we should investigate. Again, I don't have opinion on it because I'm not a huge judicial person, and when it comes to the whole process of it, but I think we should maybe start exploring on having these sessions a little bit more private, or having more privacy when it comes to the jurors. I feel like a lot of these people that are going to be picked are just going to be some of these questionable people who are older and don't have social media and don't necessarily have a any background when it comes to online. They're just going to be these like normal, boomers and stuff like that that really haven't participated online because they're just like against it or just don't want to do it.
Do you think that there's a way to, because honestly, if you can make the jurors completely anonymous to the public, it does seem like a more honest way to do it. And maybe it's a bit, I mean, that seems extreme, putting bags over people's heads and walking them in. And then you're also have them sitting in the courtroom. You'd have to have them out of the room watching from a display or something so that nobody sees them. Like it would be a challenge, but it does seem like it would be a much more honest way to have a trial. Because personally, if I was on that case or in that trial as a juror, and I sincerely believed he was innocent based on the evidence that came out, I would be scared to say innocent because I don't know what the people, my life could potentially be in danger.
Well, from what I know is that they don't have a they go in the room and then they vote, and then one person comes out. I think maybe one person just kind of like is the manager of like
have
the
the
group.
leader that comes out and reads off the verdict. But if the verdict comes innocent, it doesn't matter who was opposed, and depending on what the charges are, in certain trials you have to have a unanimous decision. In others, if it's split, it just kind of depends on the case. But whatever that verdict is, the jury is going to be labeled that from whatever that the label is, from whichever political side disagrees with it. So
this is kind of where I get out. Like, I don't know how many votes, but I think when it comes to murder, I think there is like a majority vote or like a certain percentage of votes or something like that where they have to prove. I don't know if you're looking that up right now, but
I'm not that clever.
Yeah, but again, it's obviously a majority, and it has to. I believe it has to be. I think it's just over 50%. Maybe it's 60%. I'm not 100% sure, but someone could in the comments can tell us.
I know if it's like as far as like if death penalty is on the line, it has to be unanimous.
Yeah. But this is murder, so that's why I feel like it's over 50, maybe 60% or something like that. You need to get like a little bit over that 50% threshold to get it. But you know, what's even sad is even the people who probably voted to convict Chauvin, um, if they have if they are in the minority, you know, they might be doxxed and they might be harassed or have their lives threatened as well too. You know, it's really a it's kind of interesting how things could play out and stuff, but it's also just really sad too that we are kind of living in this Central American time where we can't have fair trials, and the only way to do it is just conceal everybody's faces to not get harassed or killed.
Yeah, it definitely poses some issues, and that I don't see that discussion much right now. Maybe we'll see it later because the trial's not set for. I think it's. For some reason, August is coming to mind, but that seems too far. So I don't know if that's accurate. That might be for the other people involved. I can't remember. Anyway, I want to go back into a little bit of why why I think the second degree charges are challenging. Why opening up to third degree is more likely to get a conviction, and then a little bit more on these different charges. So, as far as the second degrees, I think this is I don't think anybody can show that Chauvin woke up in the morning intentionally planning anything. That's why they don't have the first degree on here. Even though when this started coming out on social media, you were seeing people say, "Oh, this is first degree murder, first degree murder." It's like I feel like these people that say that don't actually understand what it takes to charge someone. If you want him to go get off with no repercussions, then do first degree, because he will not be charged in first degree.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I saw on Twitter too, and a lot of people were like saying that they made like a first degree murder now, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. And there was a lot of very left, like liberal people saying, a lot of you guys are fucking kids and you guys don't know what you're talking about, but just refer to the Rodney King incident that these people got off. It was clearly police brutality, but they overcharged them and they got off scot-free. And and so that's what happened. So if you are smart enough, you need to make sure that the charge fits properly. And sometimes you might need to undercharge a little bit just to make sure that they will actually get some sort of conviction. I know it's kind of like fucked up, but it's a good strategy to undercharge a little bit to where they will actually get convicted. You know, it might not be as long as you want, but there will actually be a better chance of justice if you're lowballing it a little bit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that people don't understand. Just because somebody is found innocent doesn't mean they're innocent of the whole crime. They're innocent of the charges brought against them. And if you're going to
I think. Oh, go ahead.
If you're going to bring extreme charges, you better have extreme evidence.
Well, I think there is kind of like, if it might be a little conspiratorial and stuff like that, but maybe people want the overcharge so there is more dramatization over it in America. Like, of course, he's going to get off scot-free, not a first degree or, but even like a second or third degree or something like that. I feel like it's still a tiny bit high for a third degree, but it's definitely like more reasonable and stuff like that. But I feel like, a lot of news stations and a lot of people are banking on it for like the, upcoming riots and things like that. I know other countries are looking forward to it. They want it to happen. And they're probably using, media campaigns online to make sure it happens. I mean, it's a smart strategy.
I'm confident that there are people in that group of people that want an overcharge so that he's not convicted, because they have a lot to gain from that. But I wouldn't ever, I don't think I would put any majority group in that. And I don't think that the leftists and activists or politicians, not all the politicians at least, I don't think I can classify anyone in there, but I'm sure that there are people that do want that, because you know that there are special interests in destruction. There's special interests in dividing people. There's special interests in everything.
Yeah, it's foreign countries that want to see us burn with from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but there's also very anti-American groups in the U.S. as well that would love to see nothing better but the downfall of the U.S. I don't know what they're trying to see afterwards, but
Well, there's also groups that are very pro-U.S. but think that the system is broken. They want to tear down the police system. They want to, maybe it's you want to tear down part of the system.
I mean, yeah, I want to tear down part of the system, but when it comes to how I'm doing it, I'm trying to do it in probably the least destructive and the least I'm not trying to have any necessarily any conflict when it comes to it. I feel like mine is a lot more rational than going to a violent, heated approach.
Yeah.
It seems like like I agree. You again, we were kind of talking about like defunding the police and everything. I am for that. And it might sound funny coming from a very, very right leaning guy and stuff like that. I am definitely for it because I feel like when you have a monopoly, when you have a government monopoly when it comes to the security of our safety within our nation, I don't think that's good. I feel like there's no competition and there's no profit motive. But I'm also a believer in profit, and I believe profit's a good thing because the most moral and some of the most moral companies who without government intervention give us the best products and best services out there. So again, my theories are somewhat aligned with these groups, but I'm going in a total different direction and a different approach. I'm going kind of from a right approach where they have more a left approach.
Yeah.
It's very odd that they vote for larger government parties that are for larger government, and basically goes for like more spending and things like that. But they hate the system. It's weird that they're feeding the system, and I think they're a little misguided. And I feel like they can be guided towards a more positive direction, like the direction that I'm going, which is kind of like a little bit more legislative approach to basically destructuring the federal government. So
yeah. By the way, we won't get into this, but I did mention in a previous podcast with Donna Michaels with the Courageously Broken episode, we talked about defunding the police a little bit, and she mentioned the privatizing police, and she responded to that a little bit. It was kind of interesting, but I'm not going to go into it right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so going down into the second degree murder, here where it's important, the murder and the manslaughter. I think the murder charge is less likely. The manslaughter is more likely. It's like the further we go down, the more likely these are becoming. So second degree murder refers to the intentional killing that was not planned beforehand. I just don't see any evidence that while he's with George Floyd, that while he's there, he's intentionally planning on killing him. Like he's losing his temper and it's like, okay, now I'm committing this act of murder, and goes through with it. For me, I don't see that. What I do see, and where we start to, get some more steam, is with this manslaughter charge, second degree manslaughter. It involves unlawful killing, but without any evil intention. So negligence, maybe. And this that also falls in. You start blurring the line with third degree when you get into negligence as well, because there is a level of intent with negligence. Are you intentionally being negligence, which accidentally causes a murder, or are you completely just misguided? You're not realizing your negligence, and it causes a death.
I mean, and what you just said, are you misguided? I mean, again, in some aspects, I mean, he was misguided just because he says he can't breathe. Well, when you're repeating, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, you can breathe. Just for us, who have like, some experience when it comes to fighting, definitely you more. Um, when you're choked out, so, speaking of wrestling, when you're choked out, You cannot, you have, maybe 10 to 15 seconds where you're going to start fading away
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And he, just kept consistently saying it. So in the mind of the police officer, again, I'm not in his brain, but I'm just assuming, kind of putting myself in that position, dealing with a bunch of other criminals trying to say and do whatever to get away, to give some leniency towards the situation and stuff like that. It was
Mhm.
probably like, okay, here's just another one just trying to, say some shit to, get off or get away, or, have some leniency and stuff like that. And maybe he was following, procedures when it comes to the knee on the neck. I'm hearing that they're taking away some of that. I had the idea saying, why don't you just handcuff the ankles as well too while he's on the ground? You really can't move if you're handcuffed on with your hands behind your back and you're handcuffed by your ankles as well. I mean, you would be just inchworming away. That would be like the only thing that you can do and stuff like that. But again, this is all in hindsight. You can't.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
So we're just going to play with what we have in hand. But again, he was on drugs. He had all these things. Again, it was probably. I feel like this is kind of heading towards more just like of a minor negligence. He should have had. I don't even know when did the ambulance show up? Because if the ambulance showed up, he called. He said saying he was acting delusional and paranoid. How
Mhm.
soon after did the paramedics come? And did he follow standard operating procedure? Again, if he followed everything that he was trained to,
Mhm.
and he called the medics, he was like, okay, maybe this guy might be on drugs or something like that. And he did everything by the book.
Mhm. Well, I rewatched it today. So, like you're saying, first of all, they put him in the car. He's resisting. He's struggling.
Mhm,
The police are being nice to him. You can so on. There's different angles of cameras and whatnot. The police are being pretty nice to him verbally. They're
mhm,
giving him the opportunity to say what he's saying. They're saying, "Hey, we'll put the window down for you. We'll do this," because he doesn't want to get in the car. Resisting. He's yelling. He can't breathe. He's claustrophobic. This is something that police see every single day. And so when you see
mhm,
something every single day, like we've all watched the TV show Cops, we've all seen the things that they're dealing with. Uh, it happens every day. It's not something new. So when somebody's yelling, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe," okay, well, this is just another guy on drugs. You even hear the police saying, "Hey, what are you on, man? What are you on, man?" in the
mhm,
background a couple times. And every single not every single person. A lot of the people that they're trying to arrest are giving them excuses, making up reasons why, oh, I don't want to get in the car because of this, or ow, you're hurting me when I'm handcuffing, or oh, I can't breathe.
mhm.
It's nothing new. And as you said, if you can't breathe, you can't talk. If anyone doesn't know this, I'm not recommending you getting choked, but maybe go to a place in a safe environment or a school, a jujitsu school where somebody can do it properly. Have them choke you and try to yell out, "I can't breathe." You can't do it.
Mhm.
And if it's a blood
Yeah.
choke, you're going to go out immediately.
Yeah.
If it
And
cuts off the blood to the
usually in
brain,
those
you're out.
cases, I will push back a tiny bit on it, because I used to have very, 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 very bad anxiety. I don't. This was during college, so I don't know if you were around when I was having it, but I had an extremely bad case of anxiety and stuff like that. And I kept reliving. I had this like little PTSD where I thought my blood sugar was like just basically plummeting, and I was like losing all energy and stuff, and I felt like I couldn't like breathe. I could, but I had this like very, very bad post traumatic like anxiety stuff. So I have some sympathy. Again, his was more drug induced from what I understand, and he also had an heart issue. So a
Mm.
lot of things like factors. So his is a little bit different, but I do have some sympathy to the argument that he couldn't breathe.
Mm.
And I could breathe as well.
Mhm.
So it wasn't an oxygen issue. It was just mentally speaking, I was having this negative, weird, euphoric, whatever you want to call it, event, which was causing me to panic and overthink things and elevate like my heart rate and stuff like that. And so
Mhm.
how he was feeling and what was going through him was causing him to be scared. But as we see, he had a lot of fentanyl and he had a lot of other issues going on with it, which turned out to be the case. My
Yeah.
thing, if a cop was doing that, yeah, I probably would have panic, but I would be fine, after it and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So his heart mixed with the drugs was the killer,
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, we're opening a lot of doors. I do want to go back and get all of these. So I want to, in a minute, I want to go back to the procedure that you had mentioned. But just as
Mhm.
far as on the medical side, like, uh, yeah, everybody's going to react differently. So it's not fair that we say, oh, well, he's saying I can't breathe. He's making it. He might not have been able to breathe. And he probably couldn't. He was having the onset of his cardiac arrest. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure he couldn't breathe. His heart was going out of control with the amount of fentanyl that was in his system.
Mhm.
So we see that uh, they did call in medical support because he's yelling he can't breathe. So they did call it in, and
Mhm.
then but it was a non-emergency call. My guess for this is they encounter it all the time. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. By procedure, they have to
Mhm.
make a call that's okay. We'll get the medics here. You can't breathe. You're speaking. So in their mind, they're thinking, well, he can breathe, but he's probably on drugs. Let's get the med team
Mhm.
here to check on him, make sure he's okay. A couple minutes later, it was upgraded to an emergency call. And I don't know what the purpose for that was. I don't know the exact timeline on when they called. If that was once he went unconscious, they upgraded it to emergency, or if it upgraded it to emergency before that. I'm not sure on that timeline, but the
Mhm.
medics did arrive shortly after that, and then the follow up arrived later, which there's some controversy in that as well because the police didn't relay the information properly to the second team that arrived so that they could get to him where he was at that time
Mhm.
to get him
Mhm.
the appropriate medical attention.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of negligence in that area as well. Um,
Yeah. But again, it's really hard to prove that there was
intended,
like intent.
yeah,
Yeah.
intent on the negligence.
Yeah.
So and maybe you say, well, ignorance cannot be a justification for that sort of negligence because you're a police officer, you're trained in what to do. If you don't follow the guidelines that tell you how to relay the information to this med team, that negligence is beyond what ignorance can justify. Like,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so then let's go back into the procedure.
Mhm.
First of all, they took him out of the car because he was fighting them and refusing to stay in the car. And he repeatedly said, I want to put me on the ground, put me on the ground. They said, okay, they pull him out. And I think when they pulled him out, there's a bit of a struggle because when I was looking over the autopsy report, there was some damage to he was bleeding on the lip. He had some damage on a little bit on his face and head. So it seems
So
like
you
maybe
think
when
they like slammed him down or something?
yeah, I think they may have aggressively pulled him out, slammed him on the ground, and the
May-
video isn't clear. You kind of see him coming out, and it looked like maybe when they pulled him out, maybe he had just kind of landed on his head. Maybe they didn't support his arms properly when they're because he's handcuffed and he can't catch himself. So within that
Mhm.
struggle, then maybe there's some more
He was a big
negligence.
guy. He's a really big guy. He
Mhm.
like compared to the police officers that was there, he was a foot taller than all of them.
Yeah, and then when you're
Yeah.
on so many different substances, which I'll get into a little bit as well.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a struggle.
And
Maybe fell on his head.
even if he just fell, even dealing with dead weight, that's a lot of weight, man. Like
Mhm.
he's probably just as tall as my uncle. My uncle's really, really, really tall black man, very, very big, wide guy and stuff. He's a police officer, um, and just big, big guy and stuff like that. Derek Chauvin's like my height. I know I'm bigger than the Asian guy. The Asian guy was pretty short, but Derek Chauvin is like relatively like my height, 5'9", ish, give
Mhm.
or take. If my uncle just collapsed, fuck, I would just let him drop to the floor because he's probably gonna break my arm or break my leg, like me trying to like, catch that guy and stuff like that. And with the amount of drugs and stuff, you don't know what's going to happen and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, even wrestling him to the ground if there was resistance and stuff like that, that's that's a
Mhm.
big tough guy to
Yeah.
take down.
Yeah. So as far as a procedure, I think, he wouldn't stay in the car. They take him out, they put him on the ground. And then we get into some foggy ground with the knee. Now, their procedure says, let me pull this up real quick. Procedure in Minnesota says that if a, sorry, 1 second.
All right, friend.
It says, gosh dang it. The neck restraint may be used against a subject who is actively resisting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
and speaking with Donna from that Courageously Broken episode, I asked her about police regulations and what they're taught to do. It's control the head. If you control the head, the body will fall, which is, true. And that's what they teach them. So he also has a perp who is resisting, even though he's handcuffed, he was resisting. So control the head and use the neck restraint. Once he's there, now we get into debate like how long he needed to stay there. Okay. So whether you agree or disagree with the policy of neck restraints, that's what he's trained to do. So if you're going to use that in the trial and say, oh, he shouldn't have done this, it's like, well, okay, well, he's following the code that tells him to do it. So it's almost, it throws any intentional thing out. Like he purposely put the knee here just because of XYZ reason. He doesn't like Floyd, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's doing what he's trained to do. And you'll see it on many episodes of Cops, which I mentioned before. So as far as the second degree, I think he's following procedure. I don't think there's any evidence that he had ill intent prior to any of this situation. And it seems like it pushes it all the way down to where that third degree is where we have to go. So getting to the third degree in Minnesota, it even becomes a little bit blurry because you'd think, okay, third degree, let's go on this definition that I said before. Someone can be accused of third degree murder if they unintentionally cause someone's death while committing a dangerous act. It's like, okay, was this dangerous? Well, it's procedure, dangerous, it's foggy. But then we go into the Minnesota code. What is a third degree murder charge in Minnesota? The unintentional killing of another through an eminently dangerous act, which I just mentioned, committed with a depraved mind and without regard for human life. I think this makes it very blurry because if we go in, what exactly is depraved? It's marked by corruption or evil. So even with this definition, you have to say that Derek Chauvin had a corrupt, evil intent in his mind, that he didn't care about George Floyd's life, and through his actions led to his death.
Yeah, and again, it's just like, how are you going to get in someone's head when it comes to it? It the only I feel like what would definitely help Floyd with, or their team, is if Chauvin had like a really shady background when it came to excessive force.
Yeah, well, he's had 17 complaints, I guess, but I was reading that they're not allowed to bring that up during the trial because it's past actions. They're not allowed to mention that he has a history of violence or anything.
Well, how I
And
mean,
he's been
yeah,
in
but
3
how?
police shootings, and he one there was a fatality.
But how many complaints? I mean, I feel like police officers get complained about all the time. Is 17 a lot? I mean, because they're probably running into like 10, 15 people a day or something like that.
Yeah,
You don't think
that's
you're
kind of
going to
what I
get
was wondering
in.
as well. Like, what is the average complaints against a police officer? Like, what is the average number? Because the media can just say, oh, he's had 17 issues in the past. but it's like, what are those issues? Were they complaints against, like, what was it? There's just so much gray area.
Yeah, because when you hear 17, you're just like, oh, geez, that's not really good. But it, again, you're dealing with people who don't want to be arrested, who, majority of them have like committed a crime and then need to go to jail and stuff like that. And they're going to probably have some type of complaint against them or something like that. Or maybe he was just being an asshole one day and he got a bunch of complaints, like who knows? But like, I feel like 17 is pretty low if you are dealing with the arrests and writing out tickets to, I'll just say 7 to 10 to maybe 15 like people a day. You don't think you're going to get one at least a week? I don't know. I feel like that's a stretch, but again, I don't know. Maybe it's a lot, but I'm just imagining me being a police officer, even when I feel like I would be much more relaxed, compared to a lot of these other officers. I would never give anybody a ticket unless if they like are doing something like really bad and stuff like that. I would just be, oh, you're on 72, fuck it, I go it all the time and stuff like that. I feel like I still would get complaints about how I act. I don't know. I feel like it's inevitable almost.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully when they list that off, I mean, I don't trust the media for my life, but I'm hoping when people are pointing out these 17 prior incidents, those are those 17 with merit. Like those are on his record for a specific purpose, and that not every complaint that he's gotten. It seems impossible. In his whole career, he's only had 17 people complain about him.
And how long was he caught for? It was like 5 years or 6 years or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
I mean, I want to assume that it was 17 complaints with merit that said he does have a bit of a history of being rough with people, or else it's pointless to say 17.
Derek Chauvin was a police officer for 19 years. That's nothing. That's
complaints
one complaint every a year and a half.
I get more,
one every
that as a teacher from like
what?
I get more complaints being a teacher.
Right. 19 years and 17 complaints. That's pretty. That's nothing. That's less than one complaint a year. 0.85 complaints.
Yeah, and imagine in a year how many people he encounters. So yeah, like I'm saying, I just hope that 17. It's like those were maybe 17.
He looked like he was like a patrolman. Like I don't know why he was acting like a patrolman. I feel like after 19 years, he would have been like a detective or something a little higher up. Maybe. Well, maybe
he's had a history of complaints.
I don't know, but I feel like after 19 years and stuff, you'd have like a minimum of 50 complaints or something like that. I don't know, but what does a complaint? How far does the complaint have to be? Just saying like, oh, he said "fuck you" to me. Or is it just like, or I mean, what's the severity of it? It's like he was being an asshole one day, or was it like, oh, he kicked me in the face while I was in handcuffs? Like,
there's a big middle ground. Like,
I know, but what I'm saying is just like, what is the minimum, and then like, what is like kind of the maximum before it turns into criminal? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the range of complaints? Because it'd be like, oh, he was screaming at me while he was writing me a ticket because I went 15 over the speed limit. Okay, that's a complaint. Like, not good, but not bad, really. Whatever he wrote you a ticket and he yelled at you. Get over it.
Yeah, definitely the context matters.
Yeah.
So going into it, digging in a little bit more to this third degree, I have changed my mind, and this is something that we see on the left and the right. It seems like, and I am saying left. I'm talking about leaders, activists, and not
kind
the,
of
not the average
like
person
celebrity, the celebrity left. Let's say
the people with voices. It seems like on the left.
Hey, I have a voice. Are you talking about me?
No, you don't have a voice. I'm cutting you off. This is only me now. But
you've been censored.
Yeah.
It seems predominant like left.
Yeah. The people on the left that I just classified, they don't seem willing to change their opinion based on evidence. So yesterday, you and I talked about this for a while, and I was pretty, by the end, concluded what my opinion was. I looked up a little bit more stuff after we talked, and even now, I changed my opinion again. So I'm going to give my new opinion on what I think the outcome of this is, based on what Chauvin did. But you see on the right, with all of these cases that have been coming out over the last several years, let's wait for evidence. Let's wait for evidence. Everything, even when it's Cuomo who's going under through all these sexual allegations, you still see people on the right who really dislike him saying, "Okay, these sound really bad, but let's wait for the evidence. Make sure, let's not crucify him before we."
Okay, go
So
on. Yeah,
I guess
go on.
I guess it depends which people you're listening to.
I could argue with it, but yeah, go on.
But it doesn't matter what evidence is coming out. Like we said at the very beginning, you've got that clip and people made up their mind. CNN's not going to come on and say, "Oh, you know what? Based on this new evidence, we're going to say, maybe the police were
He's
not
not guilty or something."
You're not going to see any people that were bailing out rioters and the bailout fund on the left changing their mind based on evidence. They don't do it. They put out a narrative at the start and they stick to it. So something that I did, I went and I rewatched the video because I haven't seen it in a long time. I couldn't remember exactly, and I wanted
both or just the initial one.
I watched a few different ones, so there's some different angles. I watched the early one, I watched the late one, and then some cell phone camera ones as well. And my problem is where I can see them getting some second degree intent is towards the end. He's yelling, he can't breathe, which he clearly can breathe, but then he stops moving. And
he's like drooling pretty much.
Yeah, he's unconscious. And I don't think that Chauvin's knee, a lot of pressure on him, which, we didn't even get into the autopsy yet, but
yeah, that's fine. We'll give it.
The autopsy showed there was no neck damage. So that goes along with the narrative that no, he's not actually, or doesn't go along with the narrative that he was choking him. Okay, there's no neck damage. So, but whether or not he's putting a lot of pressure on him with that particular knee, he goes unconscious. And when he's unconscious, that's what I was talking about earlier. I don't know the timeline of when they actually made the medical calls. Once he went unconscious, is that when they upgraded it to emergency? If they did upgrade it to an emergency at that time, and they know it's an emergency, why has he still got his knee on his neck? Why doesn't he get up? One of the officers asks, should we roll him over? And Chauvin says, no, he keeps him on the ground with the knee on him. While even when the medical team shows up, he keeps the knee on him until the medical team comes over, or the medics come over and say, okay, let him up, and then they roll him over. That's my big problem. Why is he staying on?
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Okay, this is just from my personal experience, and this is where I will push you back a little bit. And this is literally, as you're talking about this is the best example I could come up with why he would do this. Again, I'm not arguing for his justification, but this is what happened. So when I was working in construction, this was my first year in college, and I think it was like over the summer, I got electrocuted like pretty badly, and I was feeling very off and very weird. So I got sent over to the emergency room over at Harborview. While I was in there for a long time, and I was just like feeling like shit. There was this woman, and I don't know if she was in a wheelchair, maybe she was in a chair or something like that, but she was clearly a woman who was trying to get drugs, right? She basically faked a seizure right in front of me, and I was freaking out, right? Because I haven't seen a lot of seizures like in my lifetime. I've seen like a handful and stuff like that, but she was clearly freaking out and just going crazy and just like stumbling all over the floor and stuff. It looked somewhat legit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The nurse literally sitting on the desk, she'd be like, just staring. Are you done, Nancy? Are you done? And literally like 2 minutes later, she just like sat up and just like sat down, like she knew, like she got caught.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not trying to like make these comparisons, but you know, this woman like, yeah, was just like passed out, acting like she just had a seizure and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can see how these public, you know, people who deal with like emergency situations like that are thinking to themselves, like, when he was passed out, is like, he's just bullshitting or something
Yeah.
like that. Like, this has happened to me before. Again, I'm not giving any credence to him doing that, because obviously what that action was wrong. But I've seen this before
Mm-hmm.
played out over in the hospitals where people are playing. Again, you know, the nurses and the doctors and the police officers, they kind of overlap on some of the things that they experience and see. And so it doesn't surprise me from the things that you're telling me that he might be ignoring it a little bit, because it happens a lot. And for
Yeah.
anybody that's over in like an emergency room hospital, they see a lot of crazy, wacky stuff that they just ignore because they know that a majority of the people are lying to have their benefit. Well, for the hospital, it's drugs. And for, you know, criminal, it's leniency when it comes to their impending charges.
Mm-hmm. And that very well could be. I mean, like we said, we can't read his mind. We don't know what he's thinking at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess, you know, you hear people in the background yelling, check his pulse, bro. He's not moving. He's unconscious. Check his pulse. And I guess at that time you'd say, okay, even if they checked his pulse, he would have had a pulse, because he didn't he didn't die in that moment. They loaded him up.
No.
They took him away. So even if they checked his pulse, it's like, okay, yeah, he's breathing. It looks really bad. That so let's say he was faking. If he took the pressure off, and then right when he got the pressure, he tried to squirm and get up, even though he's handcuffed or something, then it would be like, oh, okay, well, that's why we would know. Okay, well, that's why you keep pressure on him, so that they don't have the
Yeah.
opportunity to
He
do.
would go and assault him or
Or
grab his
like you're
gun or
saying,
something like that,
like
right?
they let up, and suddenly he rolls into traffic and gets ran over by a car, like you said, and
Yeah.
it's like now the family's suing, like, why weren't you there? He was supposed to be under your supervision, and you
Why'd
didn't
you
do
just
what
let
you
him
were
roll
supposed
into
to
the
do.
street and kill himself? Or yeah,
And then
whatever. Yeah.
the code's turned against him, and it's like, hey, they say when you've got a person that's resisting, you're supposed to use this procedure, and you're supposed to keep them down, so it can be used against him in that way. And I know maybe we're getting a little bit picky, or like making excuses for him, but I mean, these are all real. It is a realistic thing. You know, these sort of things can happen. So I'm just trying to open all the
I
doors.
feel like the socially left and the socially right, you know, that are like pitted against us. I feel like we should just like flip a coin and just be like, all right, you guys had Rodney King, we'll take George Floyd or something like that. Just make these deals. It's just done with. The news are like, no. They're trying to create more of a panic. Be like, no, we dealt it with it. They got George Floyd. They had, you know, they won Rodney King and stuff like that. We're good. We're
If
good.
you can
And
find a
stuff
way
like
to get
that.
everyone to agree to that, that'd be, you know, pretty
Exactly.
impressive.
Be like, all right, the next police brutality, you got yours. So you better pick wisely because the next one.
Yeah.
That would be simple. It'd be like I feel bad for the families, and you know, give them a little severance package and stuff, and I don't know. It's just, it
So
would make things a lot better. I'm not saying that's the right solution, but things would be dramatically better. They just flip a coin and they're just like, okay, you win this one.
yeah. Well, I mean, it'd be a lot better than fighting and tearing apart a nation for a whole year, and then who knows what kind of
Yeah, one
craziness is going
broken
to happen.
family can definitely like you know, one broken family, you know, oh, you know, the cops like wrongly accused of murder. Okay, but all the businesses are still up and there's less insurance claims. I could see kind of a thing that works out like that.
And as a side note, we didn't mention, what is it, yesterday or the day before, the Floyd family got a $27 million settlement. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that was crazy.
that might heal a little bit of their pain, maybe. Well, I don't know.
Your pain, I would be fine with $27,000. Okay, again, I should.
I'll take 27,000, but 27 million is a lot cooler.
Well, no, yeah, but that's a lot of money. Have you ever heard of a settlement that big? Do you think OJ paid out that much?
I don't know. I mean, OJ's paid a lot of money, but I don't know. I haven't looked at them, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's
So,
27 million is a lot.
anyway, so with the on the neck thing, I think that's going to be their biggest
Move into the
part of
autopsy.
the case. With once he's unconscious, he stayed on the neck. And I think that's the case right there. Right there is the negligence.
Yeah, but you have to move into the autopsy now.
Yeah. So, so that's the other problem here. So when we get into the autopsy, I've got it pulled up. All right. So, yeah, going into the autopsy, here's the thing that's really annoying to me. If you go and you were to Google autopsy report for George Floyd, you're going to get a lot of different articles, and you're going to see one of the first things. So let's see if I still have this open. One of the first things that you're going to see is reports about both autopsies found that it was homicide, which directly contradicts what the report says. And I'm not really sure where they're getting into this information, because then I go into other articles that are from different outlets. And for example, the family of George Floyd has hired, so it contradicts it, because why did they hire? They have two autopsies because they had the state autopsy. The Floyd family was not happy with what that one found, which contradicts the idea that both of them found that homicide was the reason. And so then they hired the second autopsy. So here it says the family of George Floyd has hired their own pathologist for a separate autopsy after the official results claimed he did not die of strangulation or asphyxiation. So I don't know what these other outlets are saying that both autopsies found the same result. It's just inaccurate. So now I'm going to go into the state autopsy. That was the original one that was done. Oh, shoot. One moment. Okay, so blunt force injuries. He had the blunt force injury on the forehead, face, upper lip, injury on the lip, injuries of the shoulders, hands, elbows, and legs, and contusions on the wrists, which would be from the handcuffs. Yeah. So any of that could have happened when they were doing the struggle, pulling him out of the vehicle, like we had said earlier. It goes down through his natural diseases. There's another second category, it said natural diseases, and it talks about how he has heart disease, hypertension, pelvic tumor, just the things that he has, which opens the door to, okay, he has heart disease. And we're going to see in a moment.
That's very common among African Americans.
A tremendous amount of drugs in his system. So we go down here to three, no life-threatening injuries identified. No facial, oral, or conjunctival, well, some big words.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the point is no life-threatening injuries. No injuries of interior muscles of the neck or the larynx area, basically.
Yeah.
No scalp or soft tissue, skull, or brain injuries. So these injuries that they're talking about before, those contusions that he has, it's all external. There's not any serious damage done to him. No injuries to his chest, rib, no fractures, incisions, nothing like this. Then it goes into viral testing. And then here we get toxicology. This is the big problem. So when I'm saying that it opens the door when he's unconscious, why didn't he get off him? That's the negligent part. But if he had not been on all these drugs, none of that would have mattered. When is the response. How do I say this? When does the negligence really come into play? Because, for example, if he had not taken these drugs, he wouldn't have gone unconscious to cause the negligence to happen.
Mhm.
But then you say, okay, but the fact is he did take these drugs and he did go unconscious and he didn't take his knee off. So I get that argument as well. Like, where do you think the negligence comes in? Is there any on that? Or maybe I should go through what's in his system first and then answer that question. So the toxicology, fentanyl, norfentanyl, some, I don't know what this for, ANPP, and then methamphetamine, hydroxy delta, uh, codeine positive, and caffeine. Some of those I don't know what those are. Okay, but
Mhm.
the fentanyl alone, there was enough fentanyl alone in the system to kill him.
Yeah.
So these other things just adding it on. So you have that fentanyl that can kill him, and then on top of that you add methamphetamine. Okay, there's a deadly combination, and then all these other things that I don't know much about them. Plus, he has a heart condition. Can they even get the third degree charge with this information, even with him not getting off his neck when he's unconscious? What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of thinking about it and stuff like that, I feel like the third degree charge is just kind of more of a PR stunt than anything else. Like, when I think about it, the more I kind of get into it and the more I talk about it, I'm just like trying to figure out how they can get them on these charges and stuff like that. And the more we talk about it, it's like, eh, that Derek Chauvin's lawyers are just literally going to be like, look at the fentanyl. There's the case. Like right
Well,
there.
well,
Obviously, they're going to go more into it,
they
but
can pull up examples of, well, I don't know what they're allowed to do, but I would imagine they can pull up numerous examples of people dying on fentanyl with far less fentanyl in their system.
yeah, I
So
mean, they
that
probably have
alone,
a,
it just, I don't know, it makes it tough.
yeah, they're probably going to have scientists, um, that's on their side to point out that, it, I don't know what kind of scientists you would have, and some toxicologist or something like that come in and say that, yeah, they, this, he died because of this. He had this much in his system, blah, blah, blah. And,
Mm.
with the knee and all the other things, if he didn't have those drugs in his system, he probably would still be alive today. I mean, that's what I imagine one of the toxicologists is probably going to say, defending Derek Chauvin.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I would assume. I mean, that's their best defense, and that's kind of what I feel like you and I are kind of leaning towards. It's just like if he didn't have the drugs, maybe he would still be alive. Maybe it is just like the heart thing, but again, with the drugs and the heart and everything else, it's just tough. Again, I have much sympathy for the family, and I feel like this whole situation is just it's just a circus in itself, but it's so fucked up on many levels for both sides that I want to believe dearly that Derek Chauvin was just doing his job and he was just following standard operating procedures.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I wish George Floyd was alive, and I wish that things would have played out differently, but
Mhm.
they just did. And, it's caused so much damage, just with everything. And the perpetrators who are, really firing this up is the media, generally speaking, and the influencers on social media.
Yeah.
It's just a horrific thing. I believe uh, people could believe two things at once, that what happened was a tragedy, and at the same time it wasn't necessarily his fault for what happened.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want anybody really to die. I don't want anybody to But I don't, at the same time, I don't want anybody to be wrongly accused of something when they're just doing their job, especially as something as dangerous as being a police officer. It's a really tough job, especially right now when everybody hates cops.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing that plays into this, it's a bit strange. You have one autopsy that's saying there's, no damage to the throat, no issues, cannot find anything. And then the other one is saying, oh, this was from asphyxiation. Sorry, I can't say that word
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But so depending on what side of the fence you're on, obviously, if you think that it was that Chauvin is guilty, you're going to go with that autopsy. And if you think that he isn't, you're going to go with the state autopsy. So that's another thing that's weird. I don't understand how you can have two people that are supposed to be professionals in the field and they can find such different results. That makes me like doubt that entire profession. Or
political motivations,
by,
public pressure, you
yeah.
know. I mean,
So,
those are some examples I could think on top of my head, but
yeah, it makes me question things because I don't know enough about it to dive into it and say, oh well, what this person said was wrong because of blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 118. Sorry.
Time stamping things.
Yeah. Sorry.
Nice.
Trying to get better at this because it will save me like a ton of time.
Yeah.
All right. Shoot. So we went through the autopsy and then there was something I wanted to get into from this. What was it? Crap. I can't remember. There's one more thing. Fudge. We just said something that tied into it too. This is way harder doing a podcast after we already did it. Because like a lot of the good points that we were making in conversations, it's like trying to remember, oh yeah, we said this yesterday. Like you'll say stuff and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember we talked about this thing connected to that. And I want to remember it. So I'm trying to remember to think to go back to that thing.
Yeah.
And it makes me lose track of like the natural flow of the conversation. So much harder for me to do. Like I've lost my train of thought so many times.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like everything's going fine so well, but yeah, we are just kind of like stopping or like, okay, what else?
Yeah. There was something. There was.
I mean, I remember the last question where it was just like,
Yeah, I was gonna get into that. I guess we can jump into the last one.
I could still keep going on. We're talking about just whatever subject. We were talking about lockdowns, coronavirus. We talked about like kind of like a lot of stuff, but
yeah, we left out, which is strange because we got in. We must have, because we're over what we did yesterday, but there was a lot of stuff we left out. But I guess at the beginning we kind of added stuff in. I think the beginning of our one yesterday was a lot better because I think I dove into it too quickly without giving an outline of why we were talking about it on the beginning of it. But, anyway, so let's see, 120. All right, so so based on, I guess, the kind of the outcome of what we talked about, we've got, as far as evidence goes, they arrest him. He doesn't want to be in the car. He resists arrest. He gets put on the ground. He says he wants to be on the ground. The police are being pretty friendly with their words. Chauvin puts the knee on his neck. For quite a while, he goes unconscious, doesn't take it off. He's loaded up with fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system. He ends up dying let's just go with the lowest charge, with the third-degree murder. Do you think that they'll be able to get a conviction?
I was thinking about yesterday. I don't know. It kind of depends on the jurors, and it just kind of depends on the political pressure. No, I don't think. No, I don't.
Why not?
What about you?
I think because of the narrative that's already been spun, the evidence doesn't matter as much in this case. And I think that no matter what is shown during that trial, I think that there's going to be a conviction.
I
So
wouldn't put my money on it. So I'll answer that. But yeah, I wouldn't put my money on it.
I think it's really lose-lose, because if they do show the evidence that, something comes out or it does make it clear and he's guilty, actually, I would like that the most. It's kind of sounds bad to say, like, I want him to be convicted and found to have evidence, but as far as the health of the country, it'd be better if they found good evidence or made a really good argument that convinced the juries that he was guilty, just to limit the repercussions from him being found innocent, if that makes sense. Because if he's found innocent, all hell is going to break loose. It's going to be insane. And like we talked about on the other podcast with the secret history, the secret campaign to save the 2020 election, we already know that there are higher ups that are coordinating these riots, and that one message goes out when it's time to riot, and they're going to go for it. And I guarantee that stuff's already mobilizing, that if Chauvin is found innocent, all hell is going to break loose. It's going to be crazy. So I do think the evidence doesn't matter as much in this case. I think the jury, some of them are going to have made up their minds early, and I think there will be some sort of conviction, yeah. And you know what? Even if it's third degree, I bet even third degree, there's still going to be riots, because people are going to say this is injustice. This should be a second degree, even though I don't think there's the evidence that you can put on a second degree.
I never thought about that, but yeah, that could be a thing. Obviously you live in an area where you really don't need to worry about it. Have you, actually I have a question for you. Have you seen much George Floyd talk or protest when it comes to your area? There's not really a lot of black people in Macau, I'm assuming.
Not protests, but a lot of people ask me about it. So
so they ask you directly, because you're an American, of course.
Yeah. So I would go to school, and I've had during the 2020 time, because we've been in school basically the whole time.
Yeah.
China, full-time school, America, limited school.
No time school.
Well, I guess it depends on the state. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people actually came up to me and they're like, "Oh, how's your country doing?" Like they're implying this because it's going crazy and rioting everything.
They're talking to you like it's your drunk uncle. Like, oh, how's he doing? Oh, I've heard some rough things about him lately.
Yeah. And then I had some come up and ask me like what I thought of the George Floyd thing, or what I thought of the police. Or I've had some teachers ask me why police are so racist. I've had students come to me and say, "Oh, Mr. Brent, why do police always kill black people in America?" And it's like, this is ridiculous.
No.
I don't have time to get into this, and I can't go through statistics. I'm not going to push my politics on kids. I'm there to teach them how to think, not what to think. So I wish that all teachers would take that mentality and not try to force their beliefs on kids. But yeah, a lot of people have come up to me and talked to me about it. But as far as actual riots and anything like that, or protests, no, I haven't seen anything like that. Just curiosity, really, because they have access. I mean, they where I'm at, they could get all the media sources that I get, because I find a way to get them, so they could do it. I use a VPN for some stuff, but they could get access to it. But for the most part, people around the world see the major outlets, which is basically all left-wing media. So whatever that narrative is, that's what people approach me with.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I'm really curious how other cultures see it. Do they really even care, or do they just ignore it?
I will say that the foreigners, the other other foreigners in this area that bring it up to me, the majority of them have a lot more knowledge about what's going on.
Interesting.
Than the average American. If I was to I can start up a conversation with an Aussie, and they generally will know more about the accurate details of what's going on, and that know the statistics, and be like, I've had some of them ask questions about stuff as well, and it's like they actually have knowledge behind their questions. Like, why is this the narrative when the stats don't support it, or why does your media do this?
Well, do you think when they get their information and then they display it through like your example, the Australian media, they have they're a little less biased when it comes to it. Be like, oh, currently right now, this George Floyd thing, this happened, the autopsy happened. They kind of just give general. Do you feel like
I mean, you would think that they would do that because they don't have the same motivations in the U.S. and that the news outlets in the U.S. have.
Yeah.
So I would assume it would be a more honest portrayal, but I honestly don't know anything about their media or what sources they're using. But there is it's funny. There's a teacher that comes to me and tells me the stuff that her dad reads about on the news. So he's like, get some different outlets, and during the election issues, she was coming to me. She's like, "Is it true Biden's going to get arrested?" And I'm like, "What?" And then like the next week, "Is it true that Trump is going to get arrested soon?" And I'm like, "What?" It's like just all this random stuff. I'm like, "Where?" But eventually, she's telling me that, like,
have you heard about this QAnon person?
Yeah, and then she was talking to me about. She asked me about the what were the voting machines called?
A Dominion.
Yeah, Dominion things in Germany, and she was asking about, is it true something like they're sending, like they're counting votes in Germany and changing the Dominion machines or something like with that? And I'm like, I find out, where are you getting your information from? She's like, my dad. I was like, where's your dad getting it from? Like, I don't know. He watches something. And I'm like, can you go find out and tell me? And then like,
he's like a frequent user on 4chan or something like that.
The next week she comes back and she's like, he uses Epoch Times. And I'm like, I didn't even know.
Isn't that kind of like satirical, or is it just kind of like clickbaity things?
I went and looked at it, and it's I think if you ask anyone on the left, they're going to say, "Oh, Epoch, really far right." But I went and looked at it, and there was a lot more right wing ideas, like more kind of like a little bit out there,
kind of like a Daily Caller or something like that, or
it was some of the articles were out there. Or kind of built off assumptions, like if this is the case, then blah 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 blah. But they had some other stuff on there. I thought it was a halfway decent mix. I mean, if you're going to compare it to the left
balanced,
wing, you go to any left wing major media outlet, it's just all left. So I can't criticize a right wing outlet for doing the same thing.
Weird. I wonder if he's just reading like the opinion articles or something like that, and just
that might have been too. He's just looking at all the editorials, like this sort of stuff. So who knows?
Yeah,
I find it kind of interesting. So
yeah, I don't know, man. It's just again, I said this in like the last interview. There's so much marketing going behind the George Floyd thing that I can visually see, and it's just insane because their marketing campaigns are really good. They're getting a lot of donations. They're getting a lot of political consulting. They're twisting it to have more left-wing policies pushed. They're shaming the other side for having dissenting views and stuff like that. So like I said before, I'm always skeptical when it comes to heavy marketing pushes, when it comes to everything, especially like Fight for 15 and even things like on the right as well. The Second Amendment thing and stuff like that. I feel like it has more validity because they actually have like the Constitution behind it and stuff like that. But a lot of these companies that are pushing these like far left wing things are the same companies that you are trying to that you totally oppose, like especially when it comes to left-wing ideologies. Like Amazon is pushing this, Microsoft is pushing this, just like all these rich billionaires that you despise are actually just like on your side, and they're manipulating you to go for these causes. I mean, fighting for 15 won't hurt Microsoft and Amazon. It's going to hurt their competition, and that's what they hope to do, is to destroy their competition by having the $15 minimum wage, because they could destroy a lot of the other early inception tech companies.
Yeah, and that other episode that we did with the shadow campaign that I mentioned before, I mean, they go into that how the corporations working together to manipulate the perspective the populace, basically, is what it goes into. If you actually read it and break down, what is this actually saying? And they're kind of talking it as a praise, like, oh no, we're just making sure that everything's done right. And it's like, well, no, you're actually manipulating people to believe what you want them to believe, and you're trying to stop any dissenting ideas. But anyway, so if I have to say conviction, I think there will be probably a 3rd-degree charge, maybe 2nd degree. If there's not 2nd degree, I think there's going to be riots anyway, because they want to keep that narrative going that the justice system is broken. Let's break down.
So what are all the charges? Let's go back really quick. What are all the charges? 2nd, 3rd, and 3rd degree manslaughter?
2nd degree murder, 2nd degree manslaughter, and 3rd degree murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, I'm just going to go off a whim, say no on nothing. Again, I'm not going to put my money on anything, but I'm just going to say no. I mean, this is how I feel like with all the evidence I see, and if there's going to be an unbiased jury. Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's it. If everything could be just neutral and we could just bring down aliens and have them listen to the case and no outside influence, and right when
that's what I was saying. Bring in a bunch of Mormons. Or not Mormons, Amish, because they have no TV, they have nothing, they know nothing.
Yeah, maybe that's what they need. The Amish.
They probably have never heard of George Floyd before. They're going to come back and be like, "Wait a minute, 9/11 happened? What the hell?"
Yeah. So basically, if you could bring people in that really have zero connection and they're gonna disappear after the verdict, and they just simply go off the evidence, then I don't think that there's enough to convict. Maybe a little bit on that negligence with the throat, with that thing on leg on the neck, but we have to know that Chauvin didn't know what was in the system. They did call for a medical team, and that it's timeline issues, which I'm sure they'll get into during the case. But if going straight on evidence, I'm not sure that there's enough for conviction, but in the world that we live in, I think there will be
there will be one.
Yeah.
I want to say that I don't think the season's over, and I think the no conviction is going to be the season finale for this season of America.
Season 21.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't know, man. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
but we have a long time to go, and there's going to be a lot more drama, and there's probably going to be a lot more evidence too. So
yeah, as stuff comes out, we'll try to do another one and break it down a little bit, and maybe our opinions will change. I know my opinion changed a little bit from just yesterday, so we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm starting to kind of combat some different perspectives and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what we're here for, right?
Yes, sir. Well, do you want any shout outs? Hi, Mom.
BlueOceanHQ.com. Come on, I need more money so I can market for you guys. I'm just kidding. I'm doing fine. But if you guys ever need any construction companies, I love marketing for. I market for everybody, but I definitely have this trend for marketing for construction companies. So you could email me, Spencer at BlueOceanHQ.com, or you could check out my site, BlueOceanHQ.com.
Awesome. Do you want to follow you on tweet?
Yeah, you could check out on my social media, Long Lost Explorer. I need to get up on it, but I definitely have 10 good episodes so far. So I'm going to be creating some more here in the future once I slow down on all of my work and stuff like that. My company and the rent is more important than the podcast right now. So
how dare you? If you follow Spencer, that you go and report him for violating Twitter's usage, and anything you don't like here, make sure you get him canceled.
Dox me. Yeah, just dox me.
All right. So, well, if you heard anything that you disagree with or want to debate, shoot an email to systemicdcommunication@gmail.com. This has been Systemically Distorted Communication. Until next time, I salute.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye.